Welcome to today's Global Connections program. I'm Bill Miller. Today, we're going to be taking a close-up look at a very interesting activity that's providing humanitarian assistance in Kherson, Ukraine. My guests today are experts on this topic. My first guest is Mr. Ben Dusing. Ben Dusing is former federal prosecutor who practiced law for 20 years in Cincinnati, Ohio area before discovering what he says is his purpose and passion, and that is doing humanitarian work. He is co-founder and director of humanitarian operations for World Aid Runners in Kherson, Ukraine. Mr. Dusing, a Russian speaker, operates the free store at the front that is less than 1 kilometer from the front of the Ukrainian-Russian front, that is. My second guest is Kristina Synia. Kristina Synia is a native of Kherson, Ukraine, and a graduate of Kherson State University. She and her family are survivors of the Russian occupation of Kherson by the Russians, who unleashed a reign of terror amounting to war crimes, systematically torturing people, sexual violations, and executing tens of thousands of local civilians. Ben Dusing, Kristina Synia, welcome to today's Global Connections program.
Thanks for having us, Bill. Appreciate it very much. Glad to be here.
I appreciate you being. You've come a long way to be on our show today. Thank you. Why don't we just get right into it, Ben? Speaking of a long way, you're a long way from Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, Cincinnati, Ohio. How did you decide you wanted to go to Ukraine to work on humanitarian projects?
Well, believe it or not, it all started with just what I thought was a simple 1 week trip to the border. I had studied Russian in college, lived there, worked there a long time ago before I went to law school, and then had a 20-year career as a lawyer and enjoyed that, enjoyed helping people. But when the full-scale invasion began back in February 2022, I, of course, was attuned to the region, and I saw, as we all did, just the devastation and the refugees pouring across the border. And I just thought that I could probably maybe help a little more than the average human being, given that I spoke one of the languages that they spoke, but I didn't know for sure. So I just went to the border there to help the refugees, like so many people around the world. And as it turns out, I could be uniquely of assistance. And from there, folks asked me to do things, and what unfolded was and continues to be a nearly 3-year humanitarian odyssey that has taken me all the way from the Polish-Ukrainian border all the way to the other end of the spectrum, ultimately co-founding an NGO, a non-governmental organization, resident there in Kherson, Ukraine, living and working less than 1 kilometer from the front. We have learned a lot along the way. It was didn't have a plan. The plan was to be of service. And somewhere along the way there, I discovered my purpose and passion. So it was just supposed to be 1 week at the border. But here we are.
That's right. That's right. I just went there for the weekend, and look what happened. Here we go. Yes,
right.
Very true. Well, let's talk about the World Aid Runners, and of course, our viewers can go to your website at www.worldaidrunners.org to get more information. But what exactly is it? What is the purpose of this organization?
Sure, appreciate the question. Purpose, our mission is to help the people that need it the most, and to put ourselves to highest best use doing that. Specifically, our mission there in Kherson is to save human lives. It is our mission to sustain the human lives that do not have the ability to sustain themselves until such time as they can sustain themselves again. It's that simple. It's that basic. What do people need to sustain their lives? Basic food, basic medicine, basic hygiene, and warmth in the form of clothing. It is right there on the front. There is no work at the front. It's about 90% unemployment, I would estimate, no official statistics. And traditionally, these folks were dependent on state assistance, which has never been much, and ultimately, for most of them, really is none at all. So, if you don't have work to get money to buy the things that you need to live, and there's no state assistance, the only thing that remains is foreign humanitarian assistance. And it is a very unique place, a very dangerous place. There are no resident foreign humanitarian organizations, traditionally the big organizations. And so we've had to step into that vacuum. We distribute those things for the free store at the front, but it is our mission to save human lives. It is that simple. Nothing else is achievable. We don't, everybody's needy there. We can't help all the needy. Everybody's very uncomfortable there. We can't help all of the uncomfortable. If you're not going to live, you get on our list and you get food, medicine, hygiene, clothing every month. So that's what we do. That's our mission, and that's what we're doing until mission completed.
Nicely, yeah. Now, how do you get your funding? You obviously has to come from a wide range of sources, I would imagine.
Well, traditionally we self-funded, which I think is a fancy way of saying we just paid our own way. Again, this was originally just a trip to the border there that over time kind of snowballed, and as we went along, I certainly learned a lot, and love is sacrifice. So we were able to just self-fund, and that made us adroit and adaptable. And so we did that until we couldn't do that. But at this point, we are funded in large measure self-financed, but the mission's too big for our resources. So we receive in-kind donations from various partner organizations that the contacts we've made, people that have helped us out in Europe, in Ukraine. It's difficult to get in-kind shipments. There's a war there. We're right at the front. So that's about half of it. And then we solicit, at this point, investments in humanity, as I call them. We'll take donors, but what we really want is investors and shareholders in the free store at the front. It's their store. We mind it. We hand out their love. And it has expanded to, at this rate, serve 900 people a month. That is a lot of food, medicine, hygiene, clothing. So it's private financing, and that's really where we continue to work on that. We didn't anticipate having this big of a mission.
Missions have a way of expanding under their own weight, so to speak. I've discovered that over the years. Well, Kristina is a native of Kherson, Ukraine. She's a graduate of Kherson State University. Kristina, how did you get involved with the World Aid Runners?
Первый вопрос. Он спросил, как вы познакомились, как вы можете работать в World Aid Runners. Думаю, что ты рассказывал, как вы познакомились и ваша семья.
My grandma live in Kherson in a riverbank. It's very close for the front for the river, and my mom need help, basic food, basic medicine, basic hygiene. So, and in my hand, I have a business card, Ben, and I call and I ask about help, and we meet. Ben help for my family, and after that I understand. First, it's only American, only international people who I know in Kherson, who stay in Kherson, who live in Kherson, and I can see a very big love for people and for city, and I understand it's very good opportunity for help for my people. Work with Ben with World Aid Runners.
Wonderful. That's very good. Yes. And so you went in as a volunteer and wound up on the staff and actively involved. That's very good. One thing that I've noticed behind you that it looks like a Ukrainian flag or something. What exactly is that, Ben?
It's a Ukrainian flag, and so there's some lovely customs over there. Just signs of respect and appreciation and gratitude. Probably the most common is to sign your country's flag, and that's one that's pretty special to us. It's signed by various folks there in Kherson that gave us that flag as a gift on one or another occasion, but it means a lot to us, obviously.
Mm-hmm. It certainly does. It certainly makes a difference, and it's absolutely vital to let people know what you're doing. And that's what you're doing right now. You're back in the United States and you're doing television tapings and addressing Rotary clubs and a variety of other groups, United Nations Association chapters and groups like that. So it's very important. Well, you're watching Global Connections Television, which is a privately funded, independently produced program. The opinions expressed on Global Connections are solely those of the moderator and his guest. We'd invite our viewers to go to our website at www.globalconnectionstelevision.com to view previous programs. Also, if you're involved in some type of PBS or community access television station, or perhaps an educational institution that has an intra-campus television hookup, or you have your own website, or you just have a computer and you want to share our shows, please feel free to do so. Global Connections Television is provided at no cost as a public service to help us better understand international issues and how they impact our lives. Today, we're taking a look at what's going on in Kherson, Ukraine, and talking to two people who are really right on the front, so to speak. Ben Dusing is a former federal prosecutor from the Cincinnati, Ohio, Kentucky area, who is now doing humanitarian work. And he co-founded the World Aid Runners organization in Kherson. And Kristina Synia is a native of Kherson, Ukraine, and a graduate of Kherson State University. Let's focus for a minute on what is the state, what is the status, the condition then in Kherson right now, being on the front. You probably have constant shelling. Who knows what's going on? So give us an update on that.
It's a very dangerous place. It's a very scary place. It's a very unique place, kind of the humanitarian perfect storm. So it's a city right on the river, on the Dnieper River, which is sort of the Ukrainian version of our Mississippi River. And if you can imagine a big city on that river, big metropolitan city, regional capital, pre-war, 400,000 people. And that's the city of Kherson. And it's on the so-called right bank of that river. Very narrow river, about 500 meters wide. On the other side of the river are the forces of the Russian Federation. That is a very unique situation. The front is a physical boundary. It has you have a lot of people now, and so the Russians occupy the city of Kherson for the first 9 months. It is the only major population center that was occupied by the Russians. Less than 1.5% of Ukrainians lived under Russian occupation. Thank goodness. But unfortunately, the heroic people of Kherson did. They overthrew that they were liberated after 9 months, but the Russians went down the street and across the river and dug in and quite unexpectedly began shelling the defenseless civilian population relentlessly. That's when we were called down to assist. We weren't World Aid Runners yet. That would come later. But once we saw Kherson, by far the most serious. We had been in all the places and done all the things, and we've been there ever since, helping out because it's the most serious place in our highest best use. Every single day, 350 on average rounds are incoming from right down the street across the river into the defenseless civilian population. Anyone that has any other place to go long ago went there. There's always that population, though, Bill, that cannot leave. It's very easy from afar for us to, why don't they evacuate? Well, there's lots of reasons why people can't, but generally it's the poor who don't have the resources to do that, and the elderly, people that need care. They can't, they have to have their caretakers. They have to have some place to go. Typically, that's a very, very small number because it's a small percentage of a population, but a small percentage of a big number is a big number. It's about 50,000 people that have no place else to go. So every single day for 2 years now, following the liberation of the city, these people are shelled virtually constantly. I think the longest that I can remember going without something exploding kind of nearby in Kherson is about 2 hours. It's a bigger city. The northern part of the city is just a wee bit better, but that front half of the city, where we are downtown and on the riverbank, that is just incredible. Less than 1 kilometer from the front, very dangerous. Now we have in addition to the shelling, you have the drones. These are first-person view drones. They are generally can't see them, can't hear them. They hold little grenades. The Russians fly them across the river and hunt civilians. It is a veritable bloodbath every day. And it is, if you're outside on the street for any length of time, you're really risking your life. There's about 80 to 100 drone attacks every day. There's no official statistics really at a place like that on the front, but you're talking about 10 casualties every single day. It is a devastating place. The poverty now is as much a danger as the daily danger, because the danger scares away the supply. So it's a population that hasn't gotten enough food, medicine, hygiene, clothing for a period of 2 years, and there's a reckoning there. It's a difficult place, and it's some really brave and strong people.
Yes, it certainly is very dangerous. I'm curious, do you have a backup plan if things were to?
Yes, operating there obviously requires everything must be, there's nothing loosey-goosey about living and working 1 kilometer from the front, and every contingency has to have an A, B, and C. So we certainly have to think about those things. And yes, should we need to skedaddle on north, we have the things that we need to do that.
Very good. It's always good to have a backup plan. That's for sure. Well, Kristina, you've been there. You're a native of Kherson. You've lived there, I assume, most of your life, if not all of your life. How do you perceive the situation right now, and what can people do to be of assistance to you and to the organization that you established?
Первый, какая ситуация в Херсоне сейчас вообще, и потом, что я могу делать, помогать нам?
In Kherson, it's only big city. What does it mean, Russian occupation? And for 9 months, and after that, it's front at 25 months. 25 months everyday shelling from artillery, mortars, tank fire, and now it's FPV drones, very small, very quiet, and you don't have react for this. 300 shelling every day, and 115, 200 drops grenade from drones. And if you stay in the streets 5 minutes, it's very big risk for your life. And people don't have support from government. People don't support from big international humanitarian organization. People don't have work, because every day business is blown up, businesses close, and city destroyed, and every day people died, 5-10 people in day. People lose home, people lose close people, and 15,000 people need the most basic for life. It's hygiene, it's food, it's medicine, and warmth, clothes. People poor, people hungry, and people need care, people need support, people need love, people need light, because for in this dark and difficult time, yes, people need hope and basic products for life.
And if I could add something there, Bill, just in terms of how people.
Sure, please do. Yes.
This is it really reduces to getting the supply. We did not anticipate playing the role that we did. The free store at the front was supposed to be a small little thing, and events transpired in the city that put us in a position of really being the only place that thousands of Ukrainians can go. So we're trying to get food, medicine, hygiene, clothing, and also support for the organization. But if folks are in a position to, if they have sources of supply in Ukraine or in Europe, we would love to hear from those folks. We can get those things in from those locations. Beyond that, we would love to have people consider investing in humanity by investing in the free store and providing funding so we can buy those things on the ground. That's the challenge. It's difficult to get them in there, and it's difficult to distribute those things, but we kind of have that part down, but we got nothing to give if we don't have anything. So we sure appreciate people prayerfully considering helping out the least of their brothers and sisters at the free store at the front there in Kherson.
Right. And of course, our viewers can go to worldaidrunners.org to get more information on what you're doing. And it's interesting to see what's happening in Ukraine. And of course, we saw where the Biden administration mobilized NATO and a large number of countries around the world, many UN agencies, international organizations to combat Putin and the Russians. But there's a little concern now as to the new administration as to whether or not they're going to continue the fight or if they're going to pull out or whatever the case might be. And of course, if the U.S. were to pull out, who could say what would happen to NATO? The NATO countries could put up the money, but they don't have the arms and they don't have the mechanical operations to help combat the Russians. So this is going to be extremely important to watch this. Well, in the last minute or so we have, what message would you like to leave? I'll ask you first, Ben, and then Kristina, with our viewers as to what they should think about. You've already talked about it to some degree, but is there a specific message?
I appreciate the opportunity. In short, boy, I've sure learned a lot. I'm just an average person here in the middle of America, and I've learned a lot of things. One of the things I've learned is how blessed we are to live where we live, to have what we have, and I sure took a lot of things for granted. It would be wonderful. I think there is a moral obligation in America. Has always played a part there in helping, standing with the free people of the world, especially those that don't have the ability to stand themselves. We have a moral interest, an economic interest, a national interest in doing that, and we really don't have the choice to sit on the sidelines. It's easy from afar. I think if we could be isolationist, that might be a debate. At the end of the day, we just don't have a choice. It's really in our own best interest to help these folks fight the fight, because whether we like it or not, that fight, if it's not won now, is going to come to us. So I would encourage, as a matter of policy, all the support for the Ukrainian people that's possible. That's the message I would send.
Okay, thank you. Kristina?
Ви хотите говорить что вы, если вы можете говорить что-то администрации в США, что вы хотите говорить?
Я хочу говорить, что я могу на английском.
Да.
I want to say first, I'm very, very, very grateful for help, for support, because war in Ukraine, it's 3 years. And I'm very grateful for support, for help for my country. And we need more because we want to live. We need more help, we need more support because we in process, we need to live, we want to live.
That's so extremely important. And I'm glad you mentioned that about we really cannot be isolationists. That we need to give up on that idea. Now, how involved we get in different activities is another discussion. But we really have to, and especially when it comes to Europe, because we know for a fact Vladimir Putin wants to reconstitute the old Soviet Union. We know for a fact he's already taking parts of Poland on his maps to show that he owns Poland. So it's absolutely critical. And when we read so many articles, so often, I'm so glad that we got a chance to talk to you because you're on the ground. We read articles, the United Nations, the whole panoply of UN agencies, the refugee agencies, the UN Children's Fund, just on across the board, Rotary clubs around the world who have provided generators, they provided food, clothing, and of course, that's all been of assistance. And of course, it makes it more difficult if you're in a war zone in Kherson. I understand that. But the United Nations has been on the ground since day one, and we don't know what's going to happen if we start pulling back. But I'm glad to see what I'm saying is we had the 10,000-foot eagle bird's eye macro view. Now we get the on the ground micro view, and we get a much better feel for what you're dealing with. But Ben, Kristina, I want to thank you so very much for a very interesting and a very important program.
Thank you so much for having us on, Bill. We really appreciate it. On behalf of the people of Kherson, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, spasiba. My pleasure. Thank you. I'm Bill Miller. Thank you for joining us today on Global Connections Television.